you wouldn't bet everything on lotto, would you? I see on social media that a social media star has reached out to another social media star in the business world to try to get some business advice on how they can build this great idea that they've had, which, to quote him, is going to be bigger than Facebook. Well, ideas are cheap. If you go to an incubator, a startup incubator, people freely share their ideas. Ideas are bandied around and chopped and changed and modified all the time, but it's the execution that matters. It is the successful transition from an idea into something else. I see people betting big on losing horses. And what I mean is I see people bet everything on this one moonshot that if it doesn't work, it leaves them with a whole range of problems. They're effectively broke. The fundamentals are boring, but they work. And they can work really, really well. And when you look at the percentage chance of success, applying serious, decent fundamentals and habits into a business will work, and they'll create an amazing and successful result. We've got another telecommunications company in Australia at the moment. They set their goal to be a 5-year goal to be a company with a $10 billion valuation, and they readjusted their earnings this week, and now they're $1 billion or $1.3 billion valuation company. A very long way to go from 1.3 to 10 billion. Things aren't going so well. Their strategy is being, and their plan is being challenged. So what's the common thread? With some of these bets, you'd be almost better off going and betting on the horses or betting on lotto. I mean, at least the lotto, eventually the money that you lose goes to charity. With the horses, you probably, at least you could say you've got 200 to 1 or something. With a lot of these bets, people just seem to waste the best working years of their lives. Let's take a look at it this way. Let's say that the average person lives for 72 years. So they're going to live for 72 years. The average person retires at 62. That's according to the Bureau of Statistics. Let's say that a person will get their first part-time job around 17 and they get their first full-time job around 22. So this is the key milestones in a person's life. When we look at the money that they'll be earning, probably they won't earn really anything between 0 and 17. Let's say they might have a part-time job between 17 and 22, and so that will increase. And then when they enter the full-time workforce, over the years their earnings will increase and increase and increase until the time when they retire. Again, the average is 62, at which time they'll rely on their superannuation or their pension or something like that until the average. So that's roughly what the average income of an individual looks like. The first 17 years, they don't really earn anything, earn a little bit in part-time work, and then over the years until 62, their earnings increase until they drop. Then we look at their asset accumulation. So again, not a lot in the early days. It'll go up as they get a car and a house, and that house will continue to accumulate through their life. So it's just a pretty broad trend. In terms of debt, there'll be a bubble in their 20s and 30s, and then they'll pay down that debt over their life, whatever that looks like. Again, this is averages. The problem is that people don't look at time in its entirety. People only look at time as where they are right now. So they think at the moment, this is what I earn, and this is what I own, and this is what I owe. This is my debt. And that's all that they can see. And so if this is taking the relativity of time out of the equation and looking at one's life as a map of averages, that's where we're at. So the problem is that everybody's kind of looking at it like that. They're saying, well, this is where I am now, this is my age, and they can only see what's happened before. They can't see what's happening in the future, which is obvious, but because they can't see and they can't grasp, there is a law of averages. One day we all will pass away, one day we all will retire, our debt will be paid down, and we will probably earn more in the future. Because they can't apply that in a planning method, it means that they rely on these big bets. At the Entrepreneurs Organisation, there was a guy who came to speak, and he was a very successful and prominent business person. A lot of time in the media, did a lot of really big, high-profile deals. And he said, I was always waiting for that big deal to come through. All the time I was working on a deal, and they never really, it's not that they didn't come through, but I always thought there'd be this one great big deal that would set me up for life, and I'd have more money that I can spend and everything would be great, and it never, ever, ever happens. But what does work is compound interest. So that means invest or grow or do something this year, and then something next year, and then something next year, and next year, and the next year, and the next year, in assets that will grow. Obviously not buying Louis Vuitton bags or expensive cars that will depreciate. The power of compound interest, not only in a personal investing sense, but in terms of your business. So grow the revenues and the balance sheet of your business by 10% this year, or 20% this year, and then the next year, and then the next year. And the power of compound interest is what works. If you're like the person on social media who's said that he's got the next Facebook idea, and you're going to go and spend 5 years on that, and it, as the statistics tell us, it probably won't work, you've just burnt 5 of your best years. What works the best is building on what you've got, building and accumulating and building and accumulating, and compound growth is what makes the biggest difference. As Jim Collins said, the signature of mediocrity is chronic inconsistency. If you want to be mediocre, continually change your course. Don't stick to a plan and reiterate and build and build and build over time. I also remember in the Entrepreneurs Organisation, we had one of the senior, more established and older members who had been in the chapter for, let's say, 15 years. And he said at a point in time, he said, I see these people come and go, and they're always wanting to start up new businesses, and they want to own multiple businesses and try to be really impressive in that sense. But the ones that succeed are the people that pick a strong niche and stick at it and stick at it and stick at it over a long period of time. Again, he's talking about this power of compounding. They build themselves a reputation in an industry. They build a strong business, and they continue to work it relentlessly over time. It's the same, obviously, in your personal front. People change course because they can only make the best decisions as their frame of reference is where they are right now. Imagine if we were going to sail a boat from Perth across the ocean to South Africa, and we didn't have a compass and we didn't have a map. on any given day, you would only be able to adjust the sails and the rudder based on how you felt on that day. There'd be no overriding principle. So when it comes to making decisions, if you can remove time from the equation and say, well, this is what the average person does. This is the average. How can I perform better than that level? How can I understand that is the map, again, going from Perth to South Africa, and how can I get there quicker, or how can I get there with a larger balance sheet? Maybe across the whole period of time, I know that I'm going to earn the average of, let's say, $2.3 million across my lifetime. That's the average income in Australia for a person. And let's say 30% of that is going to go in tax. Let's say that 30% of that is going to be paying off rent and mortgage over time. And then we get down to the 10% of living and holidays, and then the 10% that you can invest that makes the difference over a long period of time. Or you can say, well, if the average is 2.2, what can I do different in my 20s and my 30s to make that 2.8 or 3.2 or 4.2? And what is that going to look like? Because if you don't have an overall map, you're not going to be able to grow that. Suppose what I'm saying is the power of compound interest comes from having a really solid economic engine, from having a strong cash producing machine, be it a job or a business, over time, and trying to rely on deals. Sure, some people do it and they do it well, but if you're looking for the once in a long time, long shot, it's like saying, I like rock star, so I want to be a rock star. It's really, really hard to get that level of success.
Oh, life could be a dream if I could take you up in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love.